Hello and welcome to the third series of the Discover series of online education brought to you by Salts Healthcare. This episode, along with the other sessions, can be accessed via the Salts Healthcare website. In today's session, we are going to hear from one individual after surgery following her diagnosis of Crohn's disease. Initially, she underwent an emergency stoma formation, and then again, a few years later, she had a more planned procedure. Lorna Haymes is one of the founders of Get Your Belly Out, along with the co-founder, Victoria Marie. Get Your Belly Out is a community that encourages individuals to speak about some of the many troubles associated with living with an inflammatory bowel disease, as well as accessing the right sort of support at the right time. Lorna will share her experiences, both positive and negative, and then we will hear from Carolyne Crowe, who suggests ways that we as healthcare professionals can learn from this honest and frank account and communicate in a more effective way, perhaps altering our expression of questioning to ensure we attain the correct information rather than leaving anything to chance or intimation, to ensure our patients receive the highest quality care.
Hi, my name's Lorna Haymes and I'm 38. I have got Crohn's disease and I've had 2 ostomies. So I'll tell you a bit about the first one. I've been poorly for quite a while. I got diagnosed when I was 21, but I've been suffering since I was 14. I had a planned emergency surgery, if that makes any sense. It was very quick. Within 2 weeks, I was in having it done. And at the time, I'd been on an awful lot of medication. I was very, very down. I was really poorly, really, really poorly. My mental health was just gone completely. But I needed this surgery, so I went forward, had the surgery, and I really, really struggled. When I came out of the surgery, I had no idea that the stoma would be as large as it would be. I had no idea that there would be blood in the bag. No idea that I'd have a clear one. So at 24, waking up to that, it was a massive shock to the system. In hospital, to be honest with you, the care was amazing. The nurses were great. However, when I went home, that was where the issue started. Anyway, when I went home from the first one, I'd been in 5 days. Everything was hunky-dory, apart from obviously medicine, things like that. I was still in a lot of pain. And for the life of me, this bag would not stick. Nothing would stick. And I was holding it on. We used duct tape to try and keep it on, everything. I went home day 5, and I didn't see anybody or have any contact with any stoma nurses whatsoever. I think it was for about 5 days, and it got to the point where the bag was literally no word of a lie. As soon as you put it on, it was coming off, because I didn't have the knowledge to know at that point that the more you take it off, obviously the skin underneath is going to become damaged, and then that can weep it. And with it being my first stoma, my skin wasn't used to that. So it got to the point where the bag wouldn't stick at all, and I ended up at about 2 o'clock in the morning. I was staying at my grandma's because obviously I had the operation, and it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was sat in the bath. Absolutely, see, it still upsets me now. Sat in the bath with this thing on me. I weighed nothing. Even sitting in the bath would hurt the base of my spine. That's how I weighed nothing. I was depressed. I was 24 years old, and I just felt like, well, I've been left. I was given information. I don't mean to be ageist or whatever people say, but I was being given information with pictures of people that were 3 times my age, if not 4 times my age. I had no one to talk to, no support, nothing. And then I ended up doing the thing where I was like, well, if I don't eat, it won't work. And this is all in a really, really short space of time, because your brain's all over the place because you just want this thing to stop. We called the district nurses, and by luck of the draw, the district nurse that was on call a couple of days later, she had dealt with ostomies. So she came and she helped me a lot, showed me what to do, showed me how to deal with the leaks, because I didn't know anything about extenders, none of this. To be honest with you, I think a lot of this could have been avoided. I can see where it could have been avoided. If I'd have just had a phone call, maybe the day that I left hospital, or maybe the next morning, just to see how I got on at the night. Anything. Now, I'd already straight away developed a very, very negative relationship with my stoma, straight away, which I don't think helped me going on, because I had that ostomy for another 18 months, and every single time I saw my gastro doctor, I would beg and beg and beg to have it off. Just because, no, I was well. It made me better. But because I'd already had that, I couldn't get over that first couple of weeks. Just couldn't get over it. Even though I was well, I couldn't see past get this off my stomach. So I had it reversed, which was a massive, massive, massive error, because then I just had problem after problem after problem. And then you think to yourself, well, what do I do now? Because I'm having operation after operation after operation. It was like literally an operation every 6 months, just to remove a little bit more and a little bit more, and this adhesion and blockage after blockage. But I couldn't let myself have a stoma again, because all I had was this fully negative image of having an ostomy. I would have benefited a lot more, even though it was my second one. I would have benefited more from sitting down and speaking to someone, because these other things that pop up as well when you have an ostomy and when you've had multiple surgeries. I don't understand why some kind of counselling or some type of talking therapy or even like group sessions aren't offered to people, and then they can choose themselves whether they want to go or not. But also they need to be age appropriate, because I've been to a number of stoma meets, and they do seem to all be of the older generation, and it can take significant amount of time for it to come round to you, for you to be able to, and by the time it comes to you, you feel like, oh, well, my problems are nothing because she's got this, that, and the other. So you just tend to keep your mouth shut because you think, well, it could be worse. When I did recover and everything from my second ostomy, I still had to go to counselling, because even though I had one, it was very difficult because I was single. I was in my 30s, no children, multiple operations, clearly mental health, depression issues from the past 10 years of just in and out of hospitals and whatnot. I just feel that there could be more done. I think to alleviate some of that behind the curtain that everybody can really hear, things you could maybe, if the patient's able to be taken off the ward, maybe take them off the ward. Most hospitals have a little cafe these days, or there's always loads of seating areas where you can sit that can be quite private. And to be honest with you, even if it wasn't that private and I was in a waiting room having a conversation, at least then the people on the ward that I've got to go and sit with for the next 4 or 5 days don't know the ins and outs of what's going on afterwards, these complications, because if you've got PCAs and stuff like that, but you can walk with them, you can move them, and they actively encourage you to walk about. So, two problems solved at once. So, I've had multiple counselling sessions for it, and clearly they haven't worked. But anyway, they must have done something, because now I've got another one. So, I obviously got to the point where it was just too many operations. There wasn't enough left to keep doing this. I think I've got one operation left in me before they can't do anything else. So I've got the stoma that I've got now. And this is where what I do came about. I started speaking to some people on the internet, because I didn't want anybody to feel like I felt when I had my first ostomy, because I felt alone confused, depressed. Because at the same time as you've got that ostomy, you've still got your Crohn's disease. I started speaking to a few people on the internet and was helping them, trying to help them through getting an ostomy, like what kind of things that they should try and ask for. That obviously I didn't know at the time. Yes, we started Get Your Belly Out to build like a support network for people with Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. And obviously, as you probably know, most of us end up with an ostomy at some point. To try and fill that gap, because over years, obviously, as I've seen, you've been sure a bit, don't you? And you start to realise, well, they probably couldn't do everything that I needed because they probably didn't have the time. They haven't got the resources. So somebody needs to do it somewhere. So we did. And then Get Your Belly Out was born. And that's just gone from strength to strength. And we have now people referring stoma patients post surgery to us. We have lots of Crohn's people. We've got people now that have gained the information from us pre-surgery so that they know what's coming. We have found that people like more information than you would initially think. On Get Your Belly Out, it wasn't even that long ago, we had a girl that was a student and she'd had her ostomy put on where she lived down south, and she'd gone up to uni in Newcastle. Pretty quick, actually, to be fair, after her operation. I think she was only about 6-7 weeks, and she'd gone back up to uni. And she sent us a picture of her skin, and she had no idea about the stoma changing sizes, so she was still using the same size hole as she had when she first had surgery. My God, that girl's skin, I was in tears. Anyway, so I said, look, you need to go to your local hospital and ask to speak to a stoma internist first thing in the morning, or you need to do something. You can't leave it. Because, again, I've actually was sick Lily, and she was in absolute agony. You should have seen it. It was awful. Because she was under the impression that once the stoma had been taken care of after a surgery, all the stitches were out and the stoma nurse stopped coming, that was it. You know? And I think it's because in every other health thing, you do get discharged. For example, when I have an operation, I see the surgeon after the operation. A couple of weeks, once you're better, you go, he does a checkup clinic, and then that's it, you're discharged. With everything, it's like that, really, isn't it? Like you go and see your dietitian. Once your dietitian gets you on a proper regime and they're happy, then you're discharged from the dietitian. And I think because that's the way things work with gastro issues, maybe just people assume. So to try and put that assumption away, take that assumption away, it would be probably better just to say, look, this is my card, ongoing care from now until whenever you don't want us, or whenever your stoma's gone. I think there's also so maybe people that know that they're having surgery, for them to either be in contact with other people or real life people, not them that suddenly get a stoma and climb Mount Everest, because unfortunately that's unrealistic to a lot of people, because we've still got our illness and things like that. Real people, the stoma's not that bad. It's this that's the problem. Like if you've had chance to speak to us prior to surgery, or even when we're in the hospital, finding out little things about, like, have you got a dog? Do you like going on your bike? Do you go to the gym? Them kind of things. And then later on, you can pull them into like questioning things, and then you'll have because if someone is suddenly not walking the dog for the next 6 months, well, clearly there's something not right. If someone would have asked me 2 weeks ago, are you okay? I'd have said, yeah, I'm fine. Because I don't want to openly say, well, actually, I was up 3 times last night because I had an accident 3 times. I was in the shower at 5 o'clock. I'm absolutely knackered, and now I've got to go and do this. I've used puppy pads. You know, the dog, when you train a puppy, I've used them. That's awful. It's a bit degrading. It's embarrassing. Like, you imagine being in your bed with your partner and you having 3 leaks a night, and he's got to get up for work or she's got to get up for work. when I got my first ostomy, there was a part of grieving, I suppose, like from my old life, because I was so ill, and I lost my home, I lost my job, I lost myself completely, because I was already depressed and everything because all the tablets weren't working. It just seems like thing after thing after thing after thing, and yes, it does go like a snowball effect. And then anything little that will probably never really bother you gets added and added and added and added and added and added. And like even things like going out, people say to you, oh, no one will see it under your clothes, no one will see it. If I look down, I can see that. I can see it, especially when it's full and I'm nowhere near a loo. You can see it. But you don't go looking, normal everyday people don't go looking for it. And that's the way I think it would be better explained to somebody. Because little things like that do add on. If you've got a problem at a weekend, what do you do? Because there's no one to contact. A&E won't touch you. We've had to, as a campaign, as a business, we've actually got other people from local areas to take people ostomy bags or to go and give them flange extenders or something like that, because that person's gone to A&E and A&E have gone, we can't do anything. You'll have to ring your stoma nurse on Monday. So what does that person then do? I've done it myself where I've had a problem and I've just thought, well, if I just limit my food just to really either really, really, really soft foods or not very much, then I can get through the weekend until I can speak to somebody. Like I've had this stoma 7 years now. I've had no issues with it. Obviously, the first bit where you're getting used to it now, that's not fun. But it's bound not to be. But like I say, recently I've been having lots of leaks, and I really didn't know where to turn. And if I don't know where to turn, when I run a group, there are 26,000 people, that the majority of them have got stomas. What does that say? I believe one of the most important things going forward is for the patient to have a good relationship with that ostomy from the start. Now, that could be either by counselling, by being more informed, by having follow-ups and support and stuff like that. All of that, I think, the person really needs to have a good relationship with that ostomy from the start, because I didn't. And my stoma made me well. My first stoma made me so well. I put weight on. Technically, I was able to do things even though I didn't. But I begged for that to be off. And then I had 10 years of operation after operation and problem after problem after problem. If I wish I knew what I know now then, because I would have never have had it reversed. I wouldn't have lost, like, I probably really would have struggled now to have kids. But like, I'm nearly pushing 40 as well, and I need another operation. And obviously you've got to wait, so, and I need IVF. So I'm going to be over the threshold, so I probably won't end up having kids. I lost my career, home, friends, everything. If I'd have known, if I'd have had a better relationship with that stoma then, I think I'd be a completely different person now. I don't think I'd be in this, like, I don't think I'd be like I am now. I think I'd have been able to have my career and do all the things that I wanted to do. I mean, in one way, I suppose it's a silver lining because I've been able to help other people and stuff like that. But as personally, just as me as an individual, I would much prefer not to have had all the operations and not to have gone through it all. And I really do believe it's because of that first ostomy and them first few days. In the hospital, I was fine. But when I went home, it was as if someone had just gone and pulled everything away from me, and I had nothing. I really do believe it's imperative that the first couple, at least the first month, that the person is heavily looked after, supported, counselled, even just just having a conversation so that they know that there is somebody there, that if they do want to speak to somebody, that there is that rapport relationship where you feel that you can just answer the phone, because it's quite telling, even now as I'm saying it, it's quite telling that I was very open with the woman on the phone from my suppliers, yet I won't ring me ostomy nurse and ask me ostomy nurse. Having a relationship with your stoma nurse, even if it's only once every 6 months, or even if it's just an email, hiya, how are you doing? That kind of thing. Have you been away? How did your holiday go? Like just everyday normal conversations, not completely focused about the stoma, because sometimes it does feel like the stoma's one thing, the stoma is treated, but what about the person?
If you've seen anyone use the hashtag #GetYourBellyOut on social media, then it's as a result of the hard work that the founders of the Get Your Belly Out campaign have been doing for many years now to raise awareness of inflammatory bowel diseases such as Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, as well as trying to remove the stigma around these conditions. The Get Your Belly Out campaign has not just raised awareness of inflammatory bowel disease, but also raised those all-important funds . The amount of support and hope that the Get Your Belly Out campaign has provided to those affected by inflammatory bowel disease has changed the lives of thousands of people all around the world. People share photos of their bellies, whether they have scars, whether they have ostomy bags, or in a lot of cases where there's no visible signs of this often very debilitating disease. It has helped put a visual aid on what is an invisible illness and has helped start the conversation to help educate the public. While there's still a long way to go in terms of education and awareness around inflammatory bowel disease, the Get Your Belly Out campaign has changed the face of IBD advocacy. What started as a simple gesture transformed into a symbol of hope, strength, and courage. So get inspired, get involved, and of course, get your belly out for IBD.
Wow, I think Lorna offered a very open, honest and truly heartfelt account of some of the fears and anxieties and overwhelming feelings of desperation that she experienced during her IBD and stoma journey. One thing that was very apparent to me was the importance of communication. Communication for us all and the need to get it right. To have the correct information at the right time, because it can so clearly influence an individual's ability to cope, or not, when trying to come to terms with living with a stoma. We will now hear from Carolyne Crowe, who highlights the need for effective communication.
Welcome everybody to this session on the art of effective communication. So what we're going to be looking at in this session is how to effectively communicate with your patients, and it's one of those skills that we can use in every walk of life with everybody we do communicate with. We're all born able to talk, we're all born able to listen, but actually it's the art of making sure that we're not only informing with our communication, but also listening and receiving information back too. So when we are talking, we are a sender, so we need to make sure that we're all on the same page in order to have that effective communication. So what I mean and what I say is also what has been heard. And we can only know that what has been heard is what I mean if we then check back in, and that there's what we call a closed loop of communication. So it's not just me to you, but then it's also you to me. So it's just thinking in everything that we do, every interaction we have with our patients, whether it's on a video, whether it's over the phone, whether it's face to face, whether and how we check in with, have we been heard, and are we all on the same page? Because that's absolutely key to making sure that we are being as effective as possible in what we're saying, and therefore in what we're doing for ourselves, but also importantly also for our patients. And that message we know so often. I mean, how often do we have it on probably on a day-to-day basis, both personally and professionally, where the message has just been tweaked and it's been lost in translation, lost in communication, and the impact that can have can be really, really significant, especially in the roles that you play and that you have. So how can we do this? What can we work? What can work? So first of all, it's just in order to be effective in our communication, to be present in the moment, we need to really be careful and be conscious about how prepared are we for each communication, so we can have what we call purposeful communication. And what we need to therefore do is, before every time we pick up the phone, every time we have that consult, every time we dial in on a video, that are we present? So have we sort of dumped everything that was going on before? Are we making sure that we're not sort of jumping ahead and thinking, oh, I've got 5 people to do, and 5 consults to have, 5 patients to see, and actually then I need to make sure that I get home on time because something's happening at home, or got to pick up the kids, or whatever. You know, we all live really, really busy lives. So how grounded are you, or how present are you in each and every communication? Or have you just been hijacked by the fact that so you've just read something in the news, or you got caught up in traffic? All these really normal things, but and if we're not careful, can really derail our ability to be effective in the consult, in the conversation, in the communication that we're going to do. And importantly also, it's going to be exactly the same for your patients as well. So how often do you check in with them when you pick up the phone, especially if it's not I'm going to phone you at 3 o'clock and it's pre-planned and it's in everybody's diary, and then at 3 o'clock you phone them. Actually, probably the majority of your phone calls will be done just, I need to phone this list of patients today, and so you go through phoning them. But actually, do you check in with, is this the right time to speak? Have you got 20 minutes now? When would work for you best? Are you sitting down? And are you, so what else is happening? Asking them what else is happening in their environment. Are they trying to have a conversation with you whilst also trying to sort something else out, or getting ready to go out? So again, just taking the time, and it doesn't actually take much time, but it's more just about that forethought of, am I prepared? Checking also with yourself is, what is the aim of this visit? What is the aim of this conversation? What is the aim of this communication? Do I need to share information? What information do I need to share? What information do I need to gather from the patient? So making sure that we park what we're doing, we're in the moment, that they're in the moment with you as well. So maybe easier to do when you're face to face, because you're literally in the moment together. But much harder when you're more remote, especially if you're just on the phone call. So that you can really you give yourself the best chance and best environment to have that purposeful conversation. And then it's thinking about questions. So in order to get the right information and be told what we need to be told, we need to ask the right questions. So it's just asking yourself, just again, taking these moments to press pause and just think, well, what questions will I ask? Do I ask? Do you wait to see and wait for the information to come from your patient, or how strategic in a way are you with your questioning? It's really important to make sure that you, again, know what the aim of the conversation is, how you're going to initiate it, what information you want to gather from them, and what plan of action you're going to have. So that, again, you take that moment to think about what do I need to ask them, and then have a clear understanding of what that's going to be. We need to also remember there can be some real significant barriers to getting all the information. So no matter how friendly you are, how approachable you are still a health professional. You might not be, or you probably won't be, aware of people's previous experiences that could hinder their ability to trust you, to open up to you, to be honest with you. They may also, if you're not careful, tell you too much irrelevant information, which then puts your consult time under pressure, or your phone time under pressure. So how are you keeping them on track? When you ask them a question, how are you then keeping them on track? So again, make sure you're getting the quality of the information. You also, as I said, you are the healthcare professional. So maybe they might be a little bit scared of you. Maybe they also won't want to bother you. There's quite a lot of research with patients in general, but also specifically with stoma patients, where over 60% of patients say they don't want to bother the stoma nurse, even when they have maybe sore skin or their bag's leaking. So they know that you're busy. They know that you'll be stretched. So again, it's how are you presenting yourself? Have you slowed down and give them the feeling that you've got all the time in the world for them, even though you probably haven't. So how are you setting up that environment and setting up that conversation, thinking about the speed of your, not only what you're talking about, but also the speed at how you're speaking, and again, engaging them, so that you are asking and listening, and truly listening to them too, and then reflecting back what they're saying, so that you can again check in that clarity of understanding that you have heard from them as well as they have heard from you. So making sure that you can try and remove the barriers, making sure that you are strategic with your questioning is key. Remembering also that onus is on you to get the information from your patients, rather than waiting for the patient to tell you. Because they don't know what you need to know. So they're going to need to be guided. And as I said, they can also be, they might think that this is just normal. This is so don't assume and presume that they know. Those open questions. So, and when we talk about open questions, it's questions that don't have a yes or a no answer. So we need to think about how we're going to start those questions. So using words like, using words like what, how, when, where, who, describe to me, tell me more about. So those are the key starters of open questions. So what, how, when, who, where, describe to me, tell me more. Really important to stay well away from the why question. Why haven't you done this? Why has that happened? Why is like it's like verbal finger pointing. It adds a level of judgment, even though that judgment is probably not intended, and it can really shut people down. Oh gosh, I didn't realize, like, why have I Why have I done that to my bag? Oh, I didn't know I didn't need to do that. Or and then you start to close down the conversation. So describe to me how you're changing bags. Describe to me what the output looks like. Describe to me, or tell me more about how it feels when you touch the skin. So it's just trying to describe to me, to tell me. You're trying to draw that information from them. And so you're going to have to really, with some patients, really work on that. And also importantly, when you've got that you built that rapport, and you know your patients because you've been working with them and supporting them over a period of time, that's actually where if we're not careful, we can really trip ourselves up, because we get very familiar with them, and actually we probably forget to ask quite a few important questions, because we assume and presume they'll tell us if it's not right. So one question to have is, do you have a checklist? And how do you use your checklist of questions? So get really comfortable with being quite boring with your questions, not patronizing with your questions, but boring with your questions, so that you can make sure that you are clear and you get the information that you need and your patient needs you to know, even though they don't even know what you need to know. So really important to focus on those elements when we're thinking about questioning. So having a plan and a clear structure will enable you to have that clear communication. Knowing what the aim of your consultation is, your communication, your phone call, your conversation is really, really important. Knowing how to thinking about what questions you need to know beforehand, having that checklist can all really help you with that structure to have that effective communication. So just think about when you start every sort of consult, you're probably sort of asking very anyway simple questions like, how are you feeling at the moment? How are you doing? And that's great. That's a absolutely fine way to start the conversation. But it's very easy for somebody to just go, yeah, I'm fine, and that's told you absolutely nothing, because what does that look like? So qualitative conversations are absolutely fine, and they have a purpose. But what we also want to do is get some quantitative measures. So maybe, how are you feeling? Yeah, I'm fine. So if we had to score ourselves on a scale of 0 to 10, so 0 is really not okay, and 10 out of 10 is like you're on top of the world, all singing, all dancing. Where are you today? I'm a 7 at the moment. Okay. And if I'd asked you that each day over the last week, have you been 7 every day, or have you been an 8, or have you been lower or more, less or more? Because again, if they said, actually, a couple of days ago I was probably a 5. Okay, describe to me what was happening when you were a 5. What made you feel a 5? Describe to me why it's a 7 now. What would make it an 8? So you can get some real tangible information, on what's important to them, but also how they're scoring themselves, and also that consistency. Are they consistently fine, or are they up and down? So asking them, you can score it on a scale of like 0 to 10, or you can ask them more, again, I suppose, more strategic questions of how far have you walked today? So are you up and walking? Yes. But how far have you walked? Have you managed to walk down to the bottom of the garden? Have you got halfway? So again, you can start to see their progress, maybe even getting them to tabulate it, really, to capture that information not necessarily on a spreadsheet, but just on a piece of paper that they can put up on the fridge, so they can also monitor how much they're moving, what their skin color looks like, what their score is, their pain score maybe, as well as their how well they feel in themselves, because that will also give you really useful information when you then speak to them, and again, that tangible, measurable data, which can then help you have more strategic, effective conversations with them, and also asking them, helping you identify what's important to them and how they're going to measure their success with it as well. So remember the what, the when, the describe to me, the hows, avoiding those why conversations. And then the more information that we can gather from them, the more we can also then start to check in with the clarity and the looping of the conversation and the communication. So from what you're saying, I'm hearing that actually this week you've been consistently pain's been under control, and that you are consistently happy with where you are at the moment. But the week before, that wasn't so, because this specific thing was a worry for you or a concern for you. So again, by using recapping and reflecting and using their language, as long as it's appropriate language, but using their language will help them feel that you are actively listening to them, and that you're checking in and you're clarifying also what you have heard. Because I think it's really, really easy with especially when we're more experienced as a clinician, to not really be listening. So we ask a question, and before they've probably even answered the question, we've already answered it in our head. Yeah, I've heard this. But actually, by doing that, what is very easy to do is to miss really vital bits of information. So again, when they are talking, what are you doing? How present are you? What notes are you taking? What sort of eye contact, obviously if you're face to face or if you're on a video consult, what eye contact have you got with them? What are you doing? And how are you gathering that information? So again, you can say, well, what I'm hearing is this has happened, this is your concern, and this is what's working well. So again, you can just really check in and clarify. And they can do that too as well. So when you then talk about the plan, the next steps for them, asking them to come up with a bit of a conclusion really of, so from what we've spoken about today, can you just recap on what the key points are for you, your key concerns, your key areas that are working well, what you would like what you're expecting me to do next, and what you're expecting from yourself too. So again, it's making sure that we are all on the same page, and it's bringing all the information back to that one central place, right in the middle of us, so that we know that we're seeing and hearing the same thing. And so it's that ability to ask, receive, confirm, gain clarity, rejig it if there's a little bit of mismatch in communication or expectations. And that's going to be really important also when we're doing things like over on phone calls, when we are doing video consults. So everybody receives information differently, so don't expect because you have said it or you have heard it, then the other person has also heard it and received it, because hearing something and receiving something, like hearing and digesting it and acknowledging it and then being able to repeat it, is different. And we can only, in any consult, again, when we've looked at when both in medical fields, patients can only generally take three key points. So if you've got more than that, how else are you helping them to remember what your plan of action? So do you follow up your consults with an email? This is what we talked about today. These were the concerns I had of yours, and you talked about, and these are the actions we're going to take. And this is when we'll next speak. So are you doing that on text? Are you doing that? Are you getting them to write it down, and then you're sort of checking it? Are you doing it on an email? Like, what's the best way? What sort of leaflets are you leaving with them? But again, just because you've left a leaflet, it doesn't mean that they will read it. So again, how are you checking in with them to make sure that the information you know they need to have has been received, and that there's an opportunity to clarify that too. So again, it's just with all of these things, it's just having that, what we call that closed loop. So I send, you receive, and then I check in, and it's that looping of it. So as we sort of asked before, it's just thinking about what are we going to do? What could we do? Now, thinking about how you have been running your consults and thinking about the communication. We can all speak and we can all hear. It doesn't mean that we're effective in our communication. One question is thinking about what feedback do you get? Do you ever have that time where you think, oh, why didn't I hear that before? Why don't people tell me that? I could have dealt with it much easier if I'd heard before it's got to be as big or as serious as it is now. Making sure that we're really present in the moment of our consults, and that we're really working on ourselves, which is hard when we're pressurized and you're pressured for time. You've got your long list, there's lots and lots of things to juggle. Be really present in the moment, and to be really focused and there and in that conversation, in that communication. Again, always thinking about the aim of the conversation too. And making sure that we're not only asking questions, but we are truly listening, and we are actively listening and not dismissing information by thinking, I know that, this is the same as everybody feels like this. So again, setting up the environment is going to be one of the key things that you can do to help yourself be that effective communicator that you need to be, and you want to be, and that you'll be aiming to be, and checking in. What have you heard from our consult today? What will you do? And always that clarity and checking in is probably one of the key points, because that will be the bit that you can then confirm that they know what you need them to do. They confirm that you know that they have heard what you have intended to say, or to tweak it along the way. So thinking about all of that in that summary, think about what are you going to start doing, because maybe you haven't thought about it before. What are you going to stop doing because you just know it's not helping you be that effective communicator, and what's working well at the moment so you can continue to do. What action are you going to take? And as always, if you have any questions at all after listening to this, or you want to chat it through or to bounce some ideas off me, then please do feel free just to drop me a message, give me a call. I'm more than happy to talk to you about that. And hope it's been useful today. Remember, you can press pause and you can re-watch this again, and make your own notes as well. And good luck at being that effective communicator that you're intending to be.
This episode is able to be viewed on demand at the Salts Healthcare website, so it can be stopped and replayed at your convenience, giving you the time to write notes or reflect on certain aspects of the session if required. If anyone has any follow-up questions, then please do email us at discover@salts.co.uk, and also use the same email address and complete the evaluation form to get a certificate of attendance. The next session in the Discover series is being launched on Thursday, October the 22nd. In this session, we will discover some brand new resources that are available to support healthcare professionals when working within the specialist sphere of stoma care.